Good morning.
Jenny White. Or as my youngest, my 10-year-old says, Jenny the White Hair.
That's my Native American name.
Yeah. There we go.
How did he know that?
Pretty good.
So what up with you this morning?
Well, not too much. I want to, as we're waiting for Julianne to get on here, I want to test your connection here.
I have test anxiety. You can't test me.
I want to test your connection here with current events, Jenny, because you're the current event. This is a global current event, and I want to just get your reaction here when I put this up here on the screen.
Okay.
Let's go click this and allow for Jenny White. What do you think, Jenny? Huh? What do you think? The most important thing happening tonight, at what?
You are not going to watch that, are you really?
7, 8 o'clock something. Oh, my kids are going to watch it because they want to see the social media influencer get knocked out by Mike Tyson.
Oh, I think it's going to be, yeah. I have seen that, believe it or not. So yeah, I've actually seen that. And the only thing I can think of is I think Jake Paul's finally going to get his comeuppance, and it's going to be a swift right cross to the face, and that'll be the end of that.
I hate it that we're so entertainment based when there's so many major issues going on, but
because that'll have millions of views.
Oh yeah.
It's like, really? So I'm going to tell you about this on air since I told you about it earlier. So we did, for those of you who are watching, we did the podcast on Sooner. It's not Sooner Care now. Now I'm having trouble remembering what it is. It's Sooner Select. That's what it is. No. And apparently there's been a member of Governor Stitt's office reach out to some of these people, but I mean that it doesn't matter. Just saying this. You can reach out all you want, reach out and touch someone. Wasn't that an AT&T commercial? You can do that all you want, but until the problem gets solved, it maketh no difference. So you reach out, but you make sure you get all of this stuff put together and you get this problem solved. You're the one who created it, Governor Stitt. It's in your lap. You get it fixed.
Can I rephrase that into common vernacular?
Yes.
Talk is cheap. Is that
talk is cheap?
Talk is cheap.
I like that. How
hard is it? Yeah, how hard is it just to do something?
Well, it's very easy for Governor Stitt to be able to do all kinds of things. He appoints people, he fires people, he puts his people in there, and I still am absolutely I don't know why I'm aghast. This is kind of a bad word to say because I want to slap myself and go, stop it. I'm still struggling over what JJ said about the governor appointing Mr. Cartmel, who was over the JOJ in Tulsa, who got raided by the federal police because of all the problems they were having there, and then put him over DHS.
Yeah.
This same Cartmel who has done nothing in his entire life that's been outside of government except for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm just so sick.
That's what we see is we just see these appointments, and that's what it always comes down to is it's almost like a back scratch or some type of, hey, I'll put you in here. We'll work this out later. You owe me this, at some point, some point in the future, whatever. I mean, that's just what you see over and over again, whether it's all the way from the smallest little local things, all the way up to the big boys.
Well, and that's the thing, but that's the swamp.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the swamp. That's the whole essence of the swamp. And people will say, well, that's how you get things done, Jenny. I mean, that's just business. It's not. It's not. Because just because your friend does something, doesn't mean your friend is going to be great in this other place. Whatever happened to actually looking at people's resumes and actually vetting them for positions. What happened
Yeah.
to all of that? Anymore, it's just, well, you've been in government. We know that you can government.
Yeah.
That's why
Well,
it's so
you've
deep.
got these. Yeah.
And Steph, you are absolutely 100% right.
Yeah. You've got literal generational bureaucrats that are just constantly behind the scenes, and they're the ones that are giving all the advice, making all the recommendations, running all the things, have all the connections. I mean, whether it's from local all the way up, that's the real problem. Is you've got these unelected generational bureaucrats that are in office or in politics or professional politicians one way or another for 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
But that's, I mean, so I guess it goes back to what I said earlier. If you've been in government, then you can government.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can run the election board. That doesn't mean you can run DHS. That doesn't mean you can do any of that just because you've been connected in government.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of it. Government is bad. And how we still aren't getting there. We're still not getting there.
Well, here's the thing, and I was just talking to my son the other day about this. I said, if you couldn't enrich yourself through government, then things would completely change, because that's what most people do. Most people enrich themselves through their government, position, connection, seat, whatever it is. If they truly went to serve, if they just truly went to do their 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever. Then
what Steph said.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. That's your meme. That's your first meme right there.
Yeah.
Get us off the friends and family plan. That's it.
Well, I was thinking about those memes this morning, and when I got out of the shower, I was thinking, like when you graduate and they put in the yearbook, like the list of like most likely to succeed and things like that.
Yes.
We need like most likely to deceive and some things like that. And so anyway,
get busy on these, Michael. Quit your talking. Isn't that what you just said?
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Talk is cheap, Michael. Let's see those memes. Okay, well, Julianne is down in the waiting room. I think she's still working on maybe getting her camera ready. So just give me the thumbs up when. Okay, she's ready. All right, we'll bring in Julianne. Good morning, Julianne. How are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you, Jenny? How are you, Michael?
Great.
We'll think about it after we hear what you have to say. I'm going to say right now I'm neutral, but I'm not sure I'm going to be that once you get finished this morning. So,
well, we've got a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah. So hit it.
Okay. So we're doing carbon credits, right?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I've been going down the rabbit holes trying to get ready for today, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. You think you know this stuff, and then I always want to go back and revisit some old things that I've talked about, and then I find more, and I often end up going in a different direction than the standard. So today I thought what we would do is just talk about the carbon economy and carbon credits in terms of like 3 prongs.
Okay.
That help to explain this new system that we're moving toward. I mean, we're basically there. So people need to know that this is not something that's going to be rolled out in a far distant future. It's actually already being set up through infrastructure, through narratives, and through new markets. And those are really the 3 prongs that I want to talk about today. And I'm sure that you all will have much to add to this.
Well, before we get started, let's make sure that people understand, just to bolster your talk here. We already have in Oklahoma the 2nd largest carbon capture plant in the world. Our Governor Stitt, if you haven't seen my blog about it, you can see the video of Governor Stitt on Heimdall's Heimdall's LinkedIn page be so effusive about, we're so glad to have you here. It's just that we're all behind you, more of everything, blah, blah. We can hear him say this. And then we find out we actually have a CO2 pipeline that runs from Coffeyville, Kansas through the upper part of Washington County and down into Osage County to Scheidler, right just north of Scheidler, where this plant is. And then because of the fact that we've been really hammering on the green agenda, I'm in a bunch of groups all over the state that are trying to stop the green agenda. I can promise you we have people coming onto people's property armed, telling them that they need to get on it to create an electrical corridor, this federal needs corridor, electrical corridor that's coming in. We have people's land being taken over for windmills. We're fighting off solar. So if you think this is something that's going to go away with President Trump, I would tell you, I don't believe that it is. I do hope that he's going to turn the spigot off, but it may just be down. Who knows?
Let me before you go, but before you get rolling, Julianne, let me set two things in context. And you said that, Jenny. So first, behind all of it is this global context here. Yep. The big banks, big money, the biggest people in the world, they have their hooks in this, and it's all about money. It's all about their control of those markets. They know and understand now how to trade, how to do it, what to do, how to exploit it. So that's the first thing. Now, second, do you know who Howard Lutkin is, Jenny?
No.
He's the co-chair of Trump's transition team.
Okay.
Howard Lutkin, who they're floating his name out now. He's kind of one of two guys for possible Treasury Secretary, which I keep up with that stuff.
Yes, you do.
Here's Howard Lutnick here. He's major billionaire guy. He's head of Cantor Fitzgerald, big investment house. Well, he literally is one of the guys literally that pushes the entire green everything. Like Cantor made some of the biggest investments, most money on the entire green side in ESG in that whole push. This is the guy that's head, co-chair of Trump's transition team. He's also the guy, right here. One day ago, Trump's pick Lutnick, now top contender alongside the other guy, Bissett, for the Treasury Secretary. So this green stuff with Trump, and we need to keep a close eye on it because, Elon and Trump broke ties when Trump pulled out in 2016 from the Paris Accords. Remember that? And I have the video of Elon talking about some of that too, if we want to watch that later. But, now Elon is a major force, in Trump's campaign. Lutnick is going to be a major guy. We know Trump kind of secedes to the Wall Street. He likes to pump up Wall Street. He likes to pump up banks. They're all in on this stuff. So I would be pretty hesitant to say that Trump is going to just cut the head off of all the ESG, all the green initiatives, all the carbon capture. I bet you he doesn't do a complete 180, but I bet you he allows it much more than he did in his first term. I just want to chime in with that, Julianne, before we got going.
Oh yeah, I think that is absolutely critical for people to understand. So, after the election, I have been shocked at how many people are just saying things like, oh, well, we've got some time now. Oh, well, things are going to get better. No, if you look at, for example, Whitney Webb is doing a lot of reporting on who Trump has selected to fill his cabinet. They are all people with industry ties. Industry, I mean, the financial industry, just what you're saying, Michael. These guys, Trump is in on it. He is just the conservative-ish looking side of things. And, I've argued for a long time that the reset in the U.S. is going to come from the right. It's going to come from the people who think that they're conservatives. And I think that there's a sort of satanic element to that because, you have to get the people who think that they're doing good to buy into this sadistic plan, so there's a really twisted psychological and spiritual manipulation going on. I mean,
but I agree 100%, because if you've not been involved in Oklahoma politics and you just woke up over COVID, trust me when I say your friendly Republicans have been the ones who gave you things like Common Core. They
Yeah.
were the ones that were out there pushing every Obama education profile for everything. So, we've got to get off this idea of Republicans versus Democrats,
Yeah.
because I don't see that it's there. I mean, I think we're going to have to go to liberty candidates, or talking in terms of liberty, because Republicans versus it's just the uniparty. They just do things differently. That doesn't mean they don't have the same agendas. And
Right.
how we're going to get this through to people who are like, yay, I'm part of the GOP and it's just great and rah, rah, rah. Let's get these guys elected. I mean, stop. In 2010, because I was part of the Tea Party movement, I was there. I saw it. I've got pictures. I actually went to the Capitol. So in 2010, it was a red wave. Remember that? Red wave. And it was all over. Obama had gotten elected in 2008, and it was all over socialized healthcare. That's basically the bottom line. That's what it was. Nobody wanted socialized healthcare. Nobody wanted Obamacare. So we elected all of these guys to come in 2010. They were going to, we're going to get rid of Obamacare. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get rid of Obamacare. Where is it now?
Yeah.
You tell me, what are we 14 years later?
Yeah.
What the hell have the Republicans done for us?
Yeah.
Let me chime in with one more thing here. So because you said it's kind of Republican led, I want to show something. So when you go back to Trump's first administration, you look at who led all of the carbon tax stuff. It was the Baker-Schultz plan, and I can put that up, but you can look it up yourself. But what they did is, so Obama came in, he put in all these emission standards and all these emission things. Well, those guys went in as heroes, repealing Obama's emission stuff, but they replaced it with all the carbon tax.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did. That's two Republicans that did that.
Yeah. And it really is the exact same model. And Jenny, I'm so glad that you brought up 2010, because, what happened 2 years before, besides the election of Obama, it was the financial crisis, right?
Yes. Oh, yes, for sure.
And so that was the impetus for moving toward this new economy. I mean, the transition toward the new economy has been going on for a long time, but 2008 was a critical moment in developing all of these systems that would pave the way for where we are now, with the surveillance, with the big bailouts of the banking houses, with the consolidation of power, and quite frankly, the flagrant violation of U.S. law. You saw the DOJ, just bending over backwards to serve the bankers, and law was it was just ignored. It was violated, and it's documented, well documented, that that's happened. And so, you have Republicans coming in and taking on the healthcare industry, in 2010, supposedly. But all of the financial maneuverings were pushed toward the background. And now, if we speed up to today, what Trump is doing in tackling the green agenda, or what people think Trump is doing and the Republicans are doing in tackling the green agenda, is just a diversion from the manipulation of financial markets and, this continued rollout of the new economy. And it is a carbon-based economy that operates by measuring and managing your emissions. Now, it's really just optics. It has nothing to do with actual emissions. I mean, there's a small component that goes into that, and I'll try to talk about that. But mainly, this is about controlling our perceptions about the safety of the planet. It's about controlling our perceptions about who ought to set the standards for industry and other things like that. So
it's not about pollution.
It has nothing to do with pollution.
We're all against pollution.
It has everything to do with new markets, especially new energy markets. And I am certainly not an energy expert, but if you just start digging into the carbon economy, you can see that what we're setting, the big oil producers are moving toward a hydrogen based fuel offering. And so even in Oklahoma, you can see that there is this transition toward blue hydrogen and developing new fuels that are supposedly low emissions, right? They have, what is this? Yes. Okay. So the transition to blue hydrogen goes hand in hand with carbon sequestration. And that is because, without getting into too many of the technical details here, you can use this new hydrogen fuel in a way. You can say that at the point of combustion or point of use, it is low emissions because they are developing these carbon sequestration pipelines that supposedly pull off all of the greenhouse gases that otherwise would count toward your emissions output, right? So you have ExxonMobil, you have Shell, you have Saudi Aramco that are all moving toward the development of hydrogen and ammonia as a fuel source. This is the new fuel that is being developed. And as a part of that, they sequester carbon in order to be able to say that their new fuels are low emissions or zero emissions. Does that make sense?
No. I'm not kidding, because I still can't figure out why. I get the idea that they're so stupid that they don't understand the carbon cycle, and I get that they're wanting to find a way to manipulate the people, and most people can't capture carbon dioxide because we're breathing it out every day, and you can't just, catch it. So I get that it's a way to manipulate the small people by creating a market for trade that we can't trade in.
Right. It's also a control grid, Jenny.
Right. So I get that, but I still can't figure out to this day, because I've been a scientist, why you would want to sequester carbon dioxide in the I don't get what it buys them.
Feedstock for new materials.
Say that again.
It's a feedstock. CO2 is a feedstock for the development of new materials. So it as I understand it, it serves a sort of dual purpose. One, by sequestering carbon, you can say that your hydrogen fuel is low emissions.
Okay.
Because you have sequestered all of the carbon dioxide from its production.
Okay.
So that is the manipulation of perception.
So hold on, let's stop there, because I think that's where I'm missing it, and maybe everybody else is too. So they want to create hydrogen new fuel. We're doing that in Oklahoma. Yes. I didn't have that bill here, but we're so Kim David created a bill to work on creating hydrogen for fuel in Oklahoma. And then tell me where Kim David is right now. Does anybody know? She was a senator in Oklahoma. Do you know where she is now? She is on the Corporation Commission. See how that works?
Whoa.
Yeah. So she did all of that work to get the hydrogen stuff. And now, voila, mysteriously, she's elected to the Corporation Commission. Fell through the cracks. I would have paid more attention to that, but fell through the cracks. So they want this hydrogen, but to get hydrogen, you have to break up, and I've forgotten what they do it. It's water and something else.
Yeah, NGLs, natural gas liquids.
Okay. And so that they pull off the hydrogen, but that
Mhm.
leaves carbon and other hydrogen components.
Yes.
So then they have to pull the carbon. So then they do pull the CO2 out
Yes.
so they can say, look, we're fixing the planet. And yet
Exactly.
here you have your clean fuel and we're fixing the planet. And
Yes.
so that's what the bottom line is. They want their hydrogen fuel, but to create the hydrogen fuel, we also get carbon other,
Sequestration.
yeah.
Yes. So that
Okay,
you can
that makes
say that
sense
it's
then.
low
Thank you.
emissions.
All
So
right, thanks.
that goes into the optics that matter so much, because in order to transition to hydrogen fuel, which I think is, it's new, it's going to be expensive. We don't have all of the infrastructure set up for it. You have to sell it to the people in terms of protecting the planet and, oh, it's clean. So this is how they have to develop this climate change narrative. They have to develop the common good narrative in order to get enough people, or actually I should say giant corporations, to buy into the reputation capital movement. Oh, we're green. Green is good. We want to be seen as green, because that in itself is a market. The perception of being a green, planet conscious energy provider, that in itself is a market. And the WEF talks about a social license to operate. That just basically means that that you have to have a good reputation in order for people to buy your products. Now, what the average person thinks of any corporation doesn't matter at all. It's just what the bankers and investors think of a corporation. But they know that this is a ruse. They just have to talk the talk of green stuff so that it looks like they're only financing green energy products. And then the people who sheepishly follow the banksters and the think tanks and their government puppets, then they all say, "Oh yes, this is green, this is good," right? But it's a sham, and everybody knows it except the little people who tend to be fooled by it, right? So really, it's a very complicated narrative construction. But to move to hydrogen, yes, you have to sequester the carbon so that you can claim that hydrogen is a low emissions fuel. And there are 4 hydrogen development hubs in the US, and Oklahoma is one of those. Yeah. So, I think there's an article in the Oklahoman that was published. I think it was maybe 2019. I thought I had written it down. Yes. Oh, no, not 2019. Anyway, the Oklahoman has an article about the development of blue hydrogen, and that goes into the issue of carbon pipelines and sequestration. So what you mentioned about the using steam with NGLs to produce hydrogen, and then you have the sequestered carbon dioxide, that's exactly right. Now, CO2 is also a feedstock for it can be injected in depleted oil reserves.
Right.
So, and I don't know if this is technically called fracking or if it's got another name.
No, it's got another name, because fracking is usually
water.
It's salt water, actually, I think is what it is.
So this it's like fracking, but they use CO2 in order to loosen up the remnant of oil that's in depleted deposits. So this is an important feedstock for continuing to extract fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a market that is not a green market.
Yeah.
For CO2.
That's true. For sure.
So why are the big oil producers getting into this? Well, because they know that it's going to help them continue to produce oil. And, if if we are looking at all of the negative externalities of things like wind and solar and all of these other goofy, energy sources, then we might say, oh, good, Shell and Exxon are going to keep extracting oil. That kind of sounds good to us, but they're doing it in such a way that they're going to be able to control the entire supply, and it's going to go just to the big corporate needs and government needs, and it's going to be totally regulated under a consolidated carbon market. So in what was it, November 2021, there was the COP26 conference, the Conference of the Parties, the UN climate change.
The thing?
No, I'll bring it up on the screen, Julianne.
Thank you, Michael. So that is in 26 in Glasgow. They developed, there was an agreement about setting up a global carbon trading mechanism. So
it's the United Nations, Jenny, but they call it COP, the Conference of Parties.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
That is the UN Sustainable Development Plan.
I love it that I'm the dumb one here because I keep getting to ask questions. So if anybody else is out there.
It's complicated, right?
Yeah. But I think isn't that part of the whole scheme? If you make it super hard to understand, the plebes don't get it.
Yes, that's exactly it. So we can be told any number of things, and because the claims that we're being fed come from very advanced technologies and from the experts at MIT, at the big corporate research boards, then all of us regular people just assume that they're correct. The data says this, the evidence, the experts, they all say this. And we say, oh, well, I don't really understand all of that science, or, oh, well, they've got the data to prove this. It must be right. But it is such a scam.
Yeah, they literally have to sell it to us. They have to just market it to the people in a way that's not all.
There's the old adage, there lies, damn lie, or lies.
Oh, it was Mark Twain.
Damn lies and statistics.
Yeah,
right?
Mark Twain said that.
Yeah, and so that's how the narrative is being constructed for us every day. So the whole climate change agenda is developed not because the people who have developed it actually believe that their solutions are going to help the planet at all. They just know that they need a giant crisis, looming crisis, to scare the people into adopting this new green, common good ecosystems mentality that causes us to forego the reliance upon our common sense and instead take their explanation and their directives.
Yeah.
I want to talk about.
We have to move to hydrogen energy.
Yeah. It's fear on our side, and it's greed on their side. It's that fear and greed. That's exactly what moves it.
Because there is no reason for us to move to a hydrogen, an energy system that uses hydrogen rather than regular fossil fuels.
So let me ask you this question, or let me mention this point. So Robert has a great point, and I've left it up there because I want people to kind of ingrain that under your fingernails or behind your eyeballs. This is how we get where we are.
Yep.
Because the legislators don't get it either. I mean, I'm not a Mensa candidate, but I'm not a slouch. And if I don't get it, then people who don't pay any attention to this stuff are going to they're not going to get any of it. So it's really easy when people are in positions of power but they don't understand the output of what they're being asked to run as bills, that we get what we get. So because they're in a position of power, they're not going to say, well, I don't understand that. I don't think we need to do that because I can't get it. They'll just go, oh, you want me to run that bill?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is exactly why, and Robert, God love you for putting that up there too. I probably wouldn't have thought to say it. This is exactly why you have to be in contact with your legislator. I mean, 100% of the time. I mean, my God, I would consider yourself to be attached to their hip, especially if you have a new legislator coming in and you have this opportunity. Get them before the swamp gets them, because there are plenty of people in the legislature. We didn't turn it over well enough. There are plenty of people down there who are in seats of power who are going to want to turn them to the agenda, whatever it is that the people that are paying them down there want them to do. So you are going to have to stay engaged because of exactly what Robert said. So I'm sorry for getting out in front of you again there.
No, Jenny, I mean, I appreciate that, because it underscores the point and it brings it home to Oklahoma especially. And, you know, when I was looking at some of the environmentalists' arguments against carbon sequestration and the entire carbon credit scheme, because there are plenty of genuine environmentalists who understand that this is all bunk, and they've argued against it, but they get silenced and marginalized. You know, one of the things that I found was an organization called, I wrote it down because I wanted to remember it. Design to Win. This was a plan that was developed it's a partnership and a plan developed in 2007. And I want to say there was Podesta money behind it, and several philanthropic organizations partnered together to advance their climate risk ambitions, you know, and terms of lowering the risk to the climate. So you have all of these foundations who, there you go.
You know, and here's what's funny. I hate to jump in on you again, because I'm afraid I'm not going to let you get one sentence.
That's all right.
But I want people, because we've got a nice audience this morning, so let's educate them while we have them here. I didn't get this from Julianne. Julianne just told me Design to Win. I went out on the internet and I found it and I pulled it up. So don't think to yourself, well, I can't learn more about this, or I don't know what she's talking about. Use the keywords that she's telling you. Get out on the internet and find it for yourself. It's right here.
Yeah. I mean, this is not hidden. They are proud of this.
Hewlett
right?
Foundation, Packard Foundation.
Yeah, bad guys. And these are all the same people that have their tentacles in education, right? Because narrative construction is crucial. So you have to get kids early and you have to train them. Oh, you must support green energy because the planet is on the verge of collapse. So you have this doomsday scenario, and then you have,
look what we have over here.
What is it?
Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion at Climate Works.
Yes. And so what this organization does is they develop all of the talking points that are given to the legislators. And, you're right, Jenny, to point out that especially people who have been elected, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison talk about the role of ambition in public office seeking, right? Public offices attract people who have an ambition to do something great. Now, let's just keep that psychological fact in the back of our mind and think about, if you have someone who's been elected, they have that ambition. Are they going to want to admit their ignorance about some policy issue? Absolutely not. So what they're going to do is they're going to rely on, lobbyists and academics who appear to be unbiased. Like, we still believe that academics are unbiased. They're not. They get paid lots of money in terms of grants and prestige and things like that. So you have your legislators who don't know anything about what they're writing bills about, and they just listen to people who have lots of money and lots of resources at their disposal to do behavioral economics studies, to fashion language that is going to be appealing to the mass of people. It's
Back up a minute. Behavioral economic studies. Is that what you said?
Yes, and like behavioral psychology. So we have, if you look at behavioral insights team is one. This is it's a group that's out of the UK, but they partner with George Kaiser Family Foundation, for example, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to track human behavior and to apply interventions that are designed to create positive outcomes. Now, those positive outcomes align with what the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and let's say the satanic agenda behind them. But there is massive amounts of research about what motivates human beings and how they can be swayed to do one thing or another. If you look at there's a book called Nudge. I actually have it here. I would get up and grab it, but it's by Cass Sunstein. And it talks about using different environmental stimuli to sort of nudge people toward the behavior that you desire them to exhibit. So there is an entire industry, research industry, marketing industry, technology industry that supports this, dedicated to manipulating human behavior. And the groups that supply the talking points to our legislators, they have access to all of that information. They have developed it over decades, different studies about what motivates people to act and what words are going to have this broad-based appeal. And
they use that for COVID.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So
they use the same techniques over and over again. I mean, you go back to Edward Bernays' talk on propaganda, and he says, as we go forward, we're not going to be successful selling things to people by taking the direct approach, telling them you need this, because people will say, "Hey, who are you to tell me I need that?" So Bernays,
I don't need that, Jack.
You have to make them think that it was their own idea.
Right.
And how do you do that? By crafting an environment that gives them that idea. Yeah. And he talks about, you do it through printing articles in ladies' journal magazines and, targeting groups of influential artists. And then these ideas sort of trickle down into the populace. Yeah. And that's exactly what's happened with climate change, with green emissions, and, quite frankly, to pick on our Republican friends, with the whole privatization model of government, privatizing government. That has trickled down.
Yeah.
And the people think, oh, this is our idea. No, it's not. Yeah. And part of that is that legislators whom they trust, they have listened to these think tanks and powerful lobbying groups like, what is it, Designed to Win?
Yeah.
Who have spent the money and time developing the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But I think we're in such a bad spot, really, because marketing, my gosh, I grew up in advertising and marketing, right? I mean, that was my first job. So,
really?
That's what I did. I mean, 7 years of a job in advertising and marketing. And it wasn't when I was in it in the early 80s. They were just kind of then really launching into some of these, doing these psychological studies. I mean,
Yeah.
before it had kind of been a man on the street kind of interview, find out what people like, and then they would
Yeah.
kind of market to that. But then as technology began to grow, then it became pulling in psychologists on it. It just became a huge, so there's a huge sector of the economy out there that literally does the job of selling people crap they don't want.
Yeah.
Or making people think things that they wouldn't ordinarily think.
Yeah.
And I think people are, again, we're not cynical enough in this country. We're just
Right.
simply not. People tend to buy it, like you said, because they bring in celebrities, they bring in people or ideals that they're already used to,
Yeah.
and kind of flip them on their head. And then
Exactly.
you don't expect it. And so you kind of fall into that thinking. My gosh, I'm the biggest skeptic around, and I've fallen into that kind of stuff every once in a while. It's so good. So you can't fault people for that. But what you can fault people for is it's kind of like Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know about Jesus, it's hard. It's hard to accept Jesus if you don't know about him, but then once you do, there's a problem there. Either you do or you don't. And I think it's kind of the same thing here. Once you see this kind of stuff, if you don't see it, what can you do about it? But once you do see it, you have to actively begin to internalize that intellectually. And
Yeah.
part of what's going on in the world today is this nonsense of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Dumbs us all down, so we can't intellectually, we can't break through the fog of, oh my God, these cat videos on TikTok are so funny. We can't break through that nonsense to start functioning intellectually enough to really dig into these things and try to find out what's going on. So I think that's the biggest thing. So people who are on today, make sure you're developing your cynic muscle, right? Make sure you're doing that. And if something smells funky, immediately look into it. Don't even go, oh, well, maybe I just didn't hear that right, or overlook it. Don't do that. Immediately dive into it and figure out what's going on, because that's how they get us. That is how they do it.
Yeah, but it's tough, Jenny, when the propaganda is so good. It looks so good.
It is.
It sounds so good. It's like, oh, I love that. That's what's so hard.
But it really is. If you just notice, I know I say this every time. People are probably sick of hearing it from me, but if I follow the propagandist method, then I have to
say it
keep
15
repeating
times.
It, right?
Right.
If you just know a few of the buzzwords, I have a graphic. I know I've shared it on this show. I've shared it on Facebook many times. It says top 10 buzzwords. It's a regular PowerPoint slide. If you know those top 10 buzzwords, then you can spot a wolf in sheep's clothing anytime, because they always use the same words. And I actually have a list of hundreds of these words. And if you can see someone is using the words, then you are in a propagandist trap. Yeah. So whenever you see those, then you turn on that cynic muscle, and you say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because those words have been repeated. And, it's just mind-boggling to me that people buy the stuff. Yeah. They buy into what is being sold through innovation, sustainability, resilience, economic development, blah, blah, blah. I could just rattle them off. But they also buy into the need to hire marketing agencies to promote their service or activity. And churches are the worst, right? I mean, churches, universities, they're all hiring these consultants because they think, ooh, I've got to do what everybody else is doing. If we want to reach the people, we need to, find out what they want. So we need to hire a big marketing consulting firm who has done all of the behavioral engagement studies, who looks at what people want. And they've done the surveys and amalgamated the focus group data. And then we need to listen to them, And
Oh, no,
so
absolutely.
all of these groups that are hiring the marketing and consulting agencies because they think, and your local, your municipal government is doing the same thing, your county government, they are all hiring these groups that only exist because people think that they need to exist. It's just like the transition to the hydrogen energy system.
It's interesting
we do not
because
need it to exist at all, but everybody has somehow gotten this idea that they do, that we need it. And if you look at the product that those Marcon agencies sell, it is the same product every single time. So you've got Church A that has hired a big marketing firm and paid tens of thousands of dollars. And then what does Church A do? It does the exact same thing that Church B has done. And you've got, and the same goes for, local governments and revitalization efforts and anything. These people use patterns over and over again, and we need to be wise enough to recognize the patterns. And anytime you see it, steer clear, because what they are doing is they're setting up this, if I can just sort of bring it back to this carbon credit issue, they're setting up an economy in which all of us get a carbon allowance. That is it is how much carbon we are permitted to emit. Now, they have all of this fourth industrial revolution technology, surveillance, monitoring and reporting and analytics technologies that purport to be able to quantify your emissions like to the T. Oh, Julianne, you ate shrimp dinner. This goes to like blue carbon credits. That's why I say shrimp dinner, because I just read, okay, here, if you eat this much shrimp, here's your emissions profile.
No.
I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
No.
But they have all of this technology that says that they can track how much you've used very precisely. Well, I call bullshit, and we need to not buy that. But what it's going to do is get the regular people to say, oh, well, I've got to measure my own emissions and I need to turn off my lights and I need to do this and that. Meanwhile, you have all the big oil producers that are creating tons of greenhouse gases, building the infrastructure for a carbon sequestration pipeline. It makes no sense. And they want that pipeline not for emissions reduction. They just want it because it's going to be it's going to open up a new market that's going to require what? Ooh, a whole training industry. You're going to have to train new workers to build that. You're going to have to tax the people more and get more government subsidies to build all this garbage. And it's really just about consolidating power. And okay, last thing, I know I've been like on a rant here, but
no, it's good.
Where do you use that cynical muscle?
The Jenny White muscle. The Jenny
White muscle. Where do you use it? JW. Once you know that this whole thing is a ruse, here's what I would say to Oklahomans. Use it with your employer, because your employer is going to be rolling out all of these carbon tracking mechanisms, because your employer has more control over you than the government does in the short term, because they control what? Your paycheck. And so your employer has incentives from its investors to cut its emissions. And so how's it going to do that? Well, it's probably not going to adjust its major operating model or anything, but it can control employee behavior. And so you're going to see HR departments rolling out these new policies laden with buzzwords that talk about, say, reducing the emissions on your commute, employee commute. This is a big deal, scope 3 emissions. So you're going to see employers that say, I'm dropping things everywhere. You're going to have employers that say, how can we reduce our corporate emissions profile, because we only have a certain amount of credits that we can use? Well, we can put the thumb to our employees and we can say, you guys better take the bus. You better take the bus to work. And guess what? Your commute time, that falls under the company umbrella of control.
Good night.
So you either work from home with the lights off, and let me tell you, like smart appliances and all of that, when your employer gives you a credit for buying a smart appliance or some wellness thing, whatever, it's all to track and trace your carbon emissions, which is all a bunch of junk anyway.
Yeah.
But it's to track and trace that when you're working from home and you're under the corporate, like their control grid, Well, so when the place to use that skeptical muscle is really at your workplace, if you work for a large employer. And once you see these buzzwords rolling out about, oh, well, we want to be proactive in reducing climate risk because climate risk is business risk. When you start to see that, then fight it and educate your colleagues and say, this is garbage that our HR department has heard from a group like Dream to Win, or, a national or global HR professional development group. Yeah. And they have been given the talking points that funnel down to the plebes. So that's where I think you can fight it. You have to fight it there.
Well, and I want to make a couple points.
To my rant.
Yeah, I want to make a couple points on that, Julianne, just so people understand the gravity of just the short future when it comes to 15-minute cities, all these deals, because they hear us say these things, they're like, they can't really put together how those things are, and I can do it pretty easy. But to the point of what you said about first starting with your business or your company or your employer, government, all these things only work because of our virtue of acquiescence.
Yes.
Because we just allow it, we just go along with it. So that first of all, that's the only reason those things work. And if you think in the future, like you're talking about, you're getting a credit at your house for whatever, and you're going to have your lights off. You can't go run your dishwasher, whatever. It's going to be so simple because we're in that digital technology world now. There's a two-way street, so they can monitor you. They know how far you drive to work. They know, how much electricity you use. They know all this stuff. So it's so simple to say, okay, well, your insurance is going to go up because you keep going over. You keep going over your carbon limit every single month. Or you're going to be based, okay, you keep going over what we say your allowance is. Now you're going to be taxed at a different scale, or your electricity is going to be delivered to your house at a different level or whatever. So they're going to price you out of the market. So now you have to use their cars. Okay. You're going to have to use their transportation that's green. That's some major corporation's green energy solution. You can't live in your own house because it's not green enough. You're using too much energy. So you got to go move into one of these approved green areas. That's how easy this whole thing's going to come down the pipe.
Yeah. And if you don't believe it, just look at these massive campuses that are being developed in these innovation hubs and technology hubs, manufacturing hubs. They have workforce housing right there on the campus. That is, sometimes it's called affordable housing, but really it's workforce housing. Like you are owned by the company, and they're in partnership with the government. So when I say the corporations, they work with the government because by and large, Americans still believe in the legitimacy of our government, and they still think that it's government that makes laws and that we should follow the laws that government makes. So that is a narrative component that's really important for all of these bankers to co-opt for their own purposes. That's why they create public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
You know.
So let me put something. Speaking of public-private partnerships, I'm so glad you brought that up. So Oklahoma pledged millions to EV startup Canoo, but now the company is fighting work furloughs and supplier lawsuits.
Sounds like Solyndra, doesn't it?
Oh, it's 150% Solyndra. For people who don't remember that, that was a company in California that manufactured solar panels that Obama gave $80 bazillion of taxpayer money. And then, of course, they went out of business. But we ended up, and I think it says in this, so Oklahoma gave the electrical vehicle maker $100 million in cash incentives for jobs it created in the state. Oklahoma has also pushed back a deadline for Canoo to receive more incentive money, allowing the company more time to meet hiring goals. Canoo received its first $1 million incentive payment from Oklahoma after it announced it had created over 100 new jobs in the state in January. The money came from Oklahoma's Quick Action Closing Fund, a pot of money. This is called a slush fund, okay? Intended for the governor to recruit new employers to the state. Now, I want to just jump in here and make kind of a quick comment. So for those people who were, and Steph says that was a scam, it's all a scam. You're exactly right. So one of the things that happened in America that we allowed to happen and that all of us Americans bought into was something called the free enterprise system. And the free enterprise system is the assumption that if you make a better widget than your neighbor makes, then you rise to the top and you end up succeeding in America. And that's something that doesn't happen in a lot of countries because businesses tend to be subsidized by the government. Now, are we putting these things together after I put up the Canoo thing? So let's go back. So free enterprise system. Oh, well, we're Republicans. We're for free enterprise. We got to get out there and get. Okay. This, let's see. Did I quit sharing it? Wait, hold on. View tab. Where's it going? There it is. This is not free enterprise. And I think people don't understand that if the government takes taxpayer dollars, which they steal at gunpoint essentially, and they give that money to a company, then they have elevated this company over another company. Yeah. That is not free enterprise. That's socialism. And as a matter of fact, that's I'm trying to think of the economic system. It's not coming to my brain, but the point of the matter is that's not free enterprise. Free enterprise is the market choosing, not the government choosing. And I would argue that free enterprise is at the base and the bottom of all of this green crap. Because we're told that, obviously we're told from the top that we're all dying because we can't, and we're not allowed to actually breathe because that puts carbon dioxide into the air. And we're not supposed to have trees because the trees suck up the carbon dioxide and then grow. So we're not supposed to breathe and we're not supposed to have trees. So, it makes no sense when you think of it. It simply doesn't. But the point of the matter is we don't have a free enterprise system. We have government fascism. That's what I'm trying to think. We're in a fascist system really, because in a fascist system, the government controls businesses. And no, the government may not control your local mom and pop grocery store or liquor store, but I'm telling you that they control the bigger companies, because it's all, like you said at the beginning, it's a back and forth. The lobbyists lobby government, government gives them money. It's just a free flow of money that goes around and around in a little circle, like the little carbon credit that I put on our opener there. That's what it does. And we have to get into our heads, in order to make sense of what's going on around us. We have to get into our heads that what we're being told is American, that our American ideals are not American ideals. They're warped ideals of what we had originally thought were American. Free enterprise is an American ideal. That's what the country was formed on. But when you have governments giving money to private companies, and private companies in business with the government, that's fascist. That's not Republican.
And it's designed to fail.
Yeah.
Because, I'll hear a lot of people who say, well, they're going to see that electric vehicles don't make money in the long run. People don't want them, and that business model is it's going to flop. Well, so they think that the free market is, it's going to correct itself, right? But the thing is, the people who are designing this money laundering system, they know it's going to flop. They actually don't care about succeeding in business. It's just about capturing that short-term return. Now, they have this amazing ability to invert meaning. And so you'll hear in all the white papers, we have to have a long-term approach to value creation. And our problem is that we have this short-term mentality. And so this is why we have exploited each other and we've ruined the planet, because we think in terms of short-term profit. And so they tell us that we need to think long-term and sustainable value creation. Well, that's another example of, pardon the phrase, bullshit, because it really is. I think that's
parental warning
of that term, but so they tell us we have to do this long-term value creation, one, because it's not verifiable, and because we're not going to demand to see actual results, because we think that those results are going to be materialized in 75, 100 years. And so we're just sold on the hope that one day they're going to work out. But while they're selling us that incorrect idea, they are capturing on the short-term investments in something like Canoe. They don't care if Canoe flops. They don't care if, the whole ESG market flops. They've already reaped the rewards from all of the marketing and consulting and technology upgrades and all of the preparations and liability risk management reports that have gone into preparation for the development of the ESG market, for example. So it's just like, when money is printed. And so the people who know about the printing of money, and they know about this, increased liquidity, they can spend their extra dollars very quickly before the market prices adjust. So by the time, the inflated money trickles down to us plebes, then it's become worthless. But in that short term, they can capture tons of profits. And that's what they care about. So with Canoe, with all of these government subsidies, it's just money laundering to profit on the short-term buildup. So that is exactly what this whole carbon credit economy is about. You're going to see the corporations spending massive amounts of money to install software upgrades, sensor technologies, building upgrades, all of this garbage to be able to track and trace your emissions profile, right? And you're going to see them hiring lots of consulting agencies to talk about what are the best practices for risks so that the corporations and governments and cities, whatever, can prove to their liability risk insurers that they've done their due diligence. So, Trump, he's not going to dismantle ESG. It's just going to switch to the language of liability risk management, and it's going to be under the big insurance companies. And that's exactly what Obamacare was about, right?
Well,
if you make the jump from the green agenda and ESG and insurance hegemony over all of our decision making, what was Obamacare except giving to the major insurance companies the ultimate say over healthcare, value-based healthcare practices? It's all insurance company controlled. So that's why, Jenny, I love that you've gone after the insurance industry, and you've been on a roll on that, and thank goodness, because we need to be discussing that.
Well, it's like you said, it's all interrelated. And if we cannot wake up, I have so many people who say, oh, I just got this new car and it's great. And I can do this in remote and I can log on and see all. Why do you think Obama had cash for cars?
Yeah.
Now stop and think about how far this goes back. Why do you think Obama took out all the old cars? You couldn't track people with them.
And he gave everyone
if you
a phone.
can't come up with that answer in 15 or less seconds, my God, please slam your head against a wall. Wake up. And look at all the new cars. The new cars you are using this much carbon. Your emissions are blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what they're doing.
Go book a plane.
What are smart meters doing, Michael?
Yeah. Well, go book a plane trip online. It says your CO2 emission, your CO2 impact. But I want to go back to just one thing that Julianne said, and just to really stress this even more. So the real issue, and this kind of goes back to Robert's comment here about the legislators, they don't really understand. They're just basically given a deal or talked into, just vote on this. They have no idea. When you look at it at the highest levels, okay, these large corporations, these multinational corporations, they're the ones writing the laws. They're the ones making the rules. You go back, BlackRock, who we talk about them all the time. They literally invented the ESG. They literally came up with the whole deal, and we know their partnership with the government. But you go back even further, and I've told you this before, Jenny. You look at like the whole carbon credit whole thing started with Enron. I mean, they do it to control the market. Yeah. So at the lowest level, they can drive out all the mom and pops. And we've seen that. Look at the mass exodus of free enterprise in this country. You don't have mom and pop shops in the majority like you used to. You don't have independent newspapers. You don't have independent media. You don't have all these hundreds and hundreds of different insurance companies. You have one or two or three, and that's it. And they're all basically owned by some hedge fund or, some type of big money at another level that's basically making all the rules.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that because, I pulled up that article on Canoe, right? And this is from the Frontier. And when you actually go back and you look at Frontier, who here are their donors. What's the very first one, guys? It's the very first one. What's the second one?
Yeah.
Who did we just talk about on yesterday's podcast? These two. So do you really think, now see, back in the old days, people, when I was young, we did not have, newspapers actually had to hire people to go waste some shoe leather to go around to businesses to get them to sign up for advertising to pay for what they were doing. That was the way old journalism, newspaper journalism, and trust me, like I said, I was in advertising marketing 7 years in the early 80s. So I know I bought time for, we bought newspaper ads from these people. I know how it worked. I'd sit in my office and they would come in and they would, say, here's our rate card. Here's what you want for this size. Here's what you want for this size. And they would literally do that. Name one newspaper right now that has anybody expending shoe leather going out getting advertising. They don't want to. They can't find people to do it. They don't want to do it. So what they do is they go to these liberal, and these two, if you don't think these are liberal, sorry, Frontier, if you don't like it, then I'd take it under the cover of darkness like everybody else does. So George Kaiser, and inasmuch they are extremely liberal organizations, George Kaiser Family Foundation gave us Obamacare.
And Solyndra.
And Solyndra. Well, that's amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And yet this is an Oklahoma-based company, and we still just let them into absolutely everything. So you cannot possibly, under any stretch of the imagination, go, oh, well, yeah, the Frontier, they've got great stuff. I mean, the only reason why they wrote that article in the first place that I put this up is not because they don't like the green agenda, because they love the green agenda. They just want to get at the Stitt administration. That's what they want to do. So get out the cynical muscle, get out your BS detector and figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
Because you're getting screwed, and you're letting yourself get screwed because you won't pay enough attention to figure it out.
Yeah. And, the newspapers, it goes right into, controlling the newspapers goes right into controlling education, controlling the narrative, controlling what you see on, the TV screen, what pops up in your feed. It's all about this narrative control. And I just want to mention one thing. I know I don't know what our time is. Oh, we're going a little.
It's okay. We went.
I'm fine, but I didn't want
yesterday.
to tax the audience, with our rantings and,
Well, I think some of them actually tune in to hear us rant, but maybe not.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you.
There goes Jenny.
Well,
There's the meter. It's going up.
Yes. Well, if you look up in the WEF has a 2022 article called My Carbon Initiatives. And I recommend you just go read that little blurb that they've put out. They're not hiding anything. And it talks about a 3-way approach to shaping the movement to adopt this My Carbon Initiative. Yes, that's it. Exactly. And so it says there's this 3-way approach. One is by shaping economic behavior, and that is through the introduction of carrots and sticks. Carrots are those nice big fat government subsidies, and sticks are, the penalties that Michael talked about with, your being forced into workforce housing and things like this. So they want to shape this movement through economic behavior, cognitive awareness, which is it's a system of reputation capital nudges, and building the sense of urgency, that quick action fund that they use. They always talk about this as urgent. We must act fast to do what? To protect the common good. And so they have to develop this narrative. And then they also have to create new social norms. And this comes to new definitions of what is our fair share of emissions credits that we're allowed. And, what are the acceptable levels of, personal credit or carbon credit allowance. So you can see that this is all about, I think if you go down below this, then you'll see the 3. I know, isn't that
you
neat?
have to read this article. Did you see right here where it basically says COVID-19 was the test?
Yes. That's why I found this I found this article not
just
looking
read
at carbon
this.
credits, but because it says that they admit it. It was a stress test.
Yeah, can I
It was a
rephrase
giant
that for 1
experiment, and
second?
they tell you that.
Can I rephrase that for 1 second? COVID was an obedience test, period.
Yeah.
COVID was an obedience test.
Oh my God. And then it
Yeah, so-
talks through, yeah, you people, you've got to find this. Again, I just did what, Julianne said and just Googled I don't use Google. This was DuckDuckGo, although I think here
I
they're
use
not getting any
Google.
better.
And it says younger adults tend to be more concerned than older counterparts that climate change will harm them. It's all about constructing the narrative.
That's a ruse.
Like I say, we don't need to move to hydrogen-based fuel. There is no reason for that whatsoever, except that somehow people think, especially younger people think, climate change is going to harm us. So
because they've been propagandized into that in public school and on by their celebrity idols.
The whole environment is being, and I don't mean the nature and trees, but our whole, sphere of reality that we live in, it's all being shaped. See, that this is an important graphic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But so when you buy a flight online and it says this is going to emit so many tons of CO2 into the air, if you eat the shrimp, it's going to emit this much. All of that is suggesting to you that your choice is going to harm the planet. And it's all a mechanism for nudging you toward making a different choice. What kind of choice is that? It's a choice that benefits these banksters that have come up with this ruse. And I think we just have to be really clear about that. This is all a sham. It's a sham.
No.
And notice what it says at the bottom. Such economic action will need policy enablement from city leadership through extensive discussion between stakeholders to arrive at a fair and inclusive approach.
There's
so,
one of Julianne's buzzwords.
BS detector buzzwords, Julianne, like you've said. But what they're saying is needs policy enablement. So that means that we're going to go lobby your representatives and get them on board with this crap, which is why you've got to be engaged. You have to, because this is literally what these people want.
Yeah, and they do like to operate on city councils and city leadership because they'll get petty office holders who have ambition to do good, but they also have more uncertainty about their own capacity to do that. Yeah. And they're more willing to listen to the experts at, global marketing firms. And so on the one hand, we have to go really put the smack down on our local municipal leaders, but we also have to sort of bolster their confidence in their own common sense too, because they're in that office because they want to do good, they have a drive to do good, and they just need a better group of flatterers. Let me just say it like that.
Than the ones with their wallets out.
Yeah, they have the marketing and consulting agencies flattering them and saying, here, this makes sense. You just go present. They actually need regular people of common sense to sort of flatter them. And while we might not like that image, I mean, it's just based on human psychology, Well,
and just
we got to be the better flatterers to our local petty tyrants, and we have to say, come on, you understand this. Like those guys, they don't understand anything, and we have to form a base of popular support around local leaders that are willing to rely on their own common sense and listen to their constituents. So
listen to their constituents. That's correct. Not just say, like my representative, well, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Well, Julianne, do you think are we somewhat spinning our wheels though? Because when you look at like these movements, they have no time, they have no problem waiting 10 years, to implement their movements. So like my own example, when I was a kid, I mean, I was deathly afraid of acid rain as a kid. Living in the Oklahoma Panhandle where it doesn't rain, I'm deathly afraid of acid rain. Literally, I was.
Yeah.
So you see the indoctrination in these schools with these devices, with their curriculum, with the teachers. These kids are so inundated. I mean, look at the press that someone like a Greta Thunberg got.
Yeah.
I mean, so how can we at the same time combat that barrage on these kids that don't know any better? And I mean, heck, if they're just put into that system for 5 or 10 or 15 years, what are we going to get no matter what we do here, at a maybe a state or semi-local level? How are we going to combat that, 10 years from now? Or can we? Maybe we can't. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I wish I had a good answer to that, but I've talked with my kids about recognizing the propaganda, and they can do it. I mean, kids pick this stuff up really fast.
And you know what? Kid BS detectors are a lot better than parents are.
They are. And I think, my kids go to a parochial school with parents that all, for the most part, think in similar ways to myself.
Right.
They're not as deeply into this, but we're all of a similar mindset, right? And so my kids are pretty sheltered in terms of they haven't really met so many friends who are indoctrinated to the level that many kids in our community are. And so it's hard for them to understand what they're going to encounter later in life. And I think I've talked to them about the difficulties that they're going to face. And I've said, it is your responsibility. My kids are 6. How old are they? 6, 9, 11, and 13. It seems like they're always having another birthday, and
with 4 of them, it's difficult to keep up.
How old are you? I still think my 3rd grader's in 2nd grade. He's in 3rd. But I have said it is going to be your responsibility. Yeah. Like my generation, I'm Gen X, like the tail end of Gen X. We've identified this problem, I think, and we've decoded it, so to speak. But we're old now, and our influence is limited. So now, with my kids, I say, here's what's going on. You must recognize it. You must take responsibility for making sure that you get the information that is going to be denied to you by the system.
Yeah.
Even our good system that's at our little parochial school, it's still, there's lots of buzzwords that go on there, and there are lots of things that don't get mentioned. And I say it's your responsibility to learn it, and for you to be an example of being free and independent from these buzzwords.
Yeah.
Because I think that, the kids who have not been exposed to a conspiracy theorist parent, or even just a parent that kind of, ignores what's going on.
Questioning parent.
But the kids who are really steeped in the propaganda, for some of them, they're not going to get out. But for others, I think if they happen to encounter somebody who represents an alternative way of life and an alternative way of thinking, then that could be the spark, And so I think what's our duty is to sort of save the alternative, just to make sure that the whole world doesn't succumb to this consolidated, sustainable, resilient mindset. So we just have to we do our best to make sure that there are pockets of alternatives, so that, it's like when you read a good book and it introduces you to new concepts and new ways of thinking that you wouldn't have in your ordinary life. That's the beauty of books. We have to make sure that there are people who embody different narratives that are going to give other people occasions to sort of get out of this program mentality.
Yeah.
It's not,
no, I mean,
that's not really an easy or satisfactory answer, but in the past, couple of years, that's what I've come up with. I say, kids, you have to be a light, you have to be you just have to represent something that is not mass manufactured propaganda. And you might be wrong on some things. You might fail on a lot of things. You're not going to make a lot of money. People are not going to like you, but at least you will be different.
You say, look at Jenny White. No.
Right.
Hey, how's your little, what is it, a horse that he had she had the hoof problems?
Yes.
How
it's my donkey. Yes.
Okay, I thought I couldn't tell. I just saw it, and I have worried about that little animal.
She's walking like this. Yeah, she's never going to let me trim her toes again or have them.
Bless her. So when I think, oh, you're going to be like Jenny White, I think Jenny is so cool because she does this, and then she's got all these animals that she takes care of, and bless her heart, like her farm was flooded, and I think she's Superwoman.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that, but hey, back up, Michael.
Yeah.
Let me get over to the side. There you go.
I've been trying to read that shirt this whole episode. I was like, what does that say?
Really? They frogs gave me COVID, that's for sure.
Did you actually get that from?
Perfectly, huh?
No, I did not buy that from Alex Jones.
Okay, I was thinking maybe that's so funny. Well, I think what we've done here is expose some more stuff. Just expose some more of the crap. I mean, it's very interesting to me because I've been sitting here watching my people who watch go, what are you doing? Well, I write down things to make sure that I got places to go because I edit the videos. So I write that down. I'm writing myself little notes, but I'm also looking on our Rumble. I'm also looking on our Twitter account. I'm also looking and just kind of, to see who's watching and where people are watching. And it's been fascinating to me. Rumble was supposed to be this alternative to YouTube, right? I mean, it's we're not going to shut you down. We're not going to, I have no idea what's happened to Rumble, but as soon as we bought a subscription to Rumble so that we could make sure that we have gotten absolutely no views on Rumble. 3 people are watching us right now on Rumble. It's completely bizarre. I don't know what's gone on there.
Yeah, that
YouTube,
used to be our largest audience.
We actually have quite a growing audience on YouTube, which is nice. And some people are watching it from my side and from our Facebook page. But the majority of our viewers right now are on X. And it just hit me, I don't pay a lot of attention to who's, social media sites, but it does interest me that Elon Musk has made a continual pronouncement that he's not going to throw people off of Twitter, and it's going to be very, or X now that he's called it, and it's going to be very open. Well, it's so interesting to me that we have so many of our viewers on X right now, and yet even on Rumble, we can't seem to gain an audience. It makes you wonder, again, are we being propagandized here? I mean, when people say, one thing, and I don't know. It's
well, and on top of that, Jenny, you saw that in live time when we started posting to TikTok, and you had some things really start catching traction. Then all of a sudden, it was completely retracted. I mean, completely down to 0 shortly after that.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I like Elon. I don't know if I trust him.
Steph says Elon is a clone.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't know. I
trust,
wondered about his complexion.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if I trust him. He makes all his money from the government. Now
Yeah,
he's going to
he
be
does.
a pretty serious player in this next administration. He's a big AI guy. I mean, even though he's publicly said, hey, AI can be really bad. AI is probably going to be, but he talks all the doomsday with AI, yet he's still doing AI. He's got the brain chips. He's pursuing that. He's got all the huge government contracts with SpaceX and things like that. He's 100% on board with the whole carbon side of everything. And I have a 1-minute video to show if you want to watch that in an interview with Joe Rogan, where Joe was, probably a big part of Trump's final push there, as Joe endorsed him and had an interview with him. So, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily trust the guy. I mean, if you could ever say that, there's a devil incarnate, he's going to be a pretty slick guy that everybody loves. I'm not saying Elon is that guy, but I don't trust him. I mean, it just seems too coincidental that all these things line up. Now he's going to be Mr. Efficiency. He, got a hold of Twitter. Yeah, it seems like it's good. I don't know. Maybe that's my Jenny White muscle. But
that's what I was going to say. You listed things that made you uncomfortable. I mean, you have specific things in his history that you can point to that make you uncomfortable. That's exactly what we should be doing. So, yeah, I mean, that's the right approach to all of this, is to not just go, oh, Elon, he's our savior. Oh, Trump, he's our savior. We've got to start using the thing up here that actually came with us when we came out.
Yeah.
God gave it to us.
Is he a billionaire? He's a billionaire. Is he into surveillance? He's into surveillance. Yeah. I mean, you don't become a billionaire without making deals with the devil.
Yeah, but I will say one thing, and because you got to counter, you got to look at the whole picture. But then, NASA couldn't do anything right to save its life. I mean, I don't think they could throw a rock 20 feet at this point in time. But then SpaceX just sent a rocket up and then re-landed that same rocket. So I think that's part of the problem, is that we have a situation now where everything is so intertwined and convoluted. It's extraordinarily hard to tease it apart to see what parts make sense and what parts don't make sense. And well, if this makes sense, then where is that coming from? And it really, when we've been trained out of critical thinking to try to critical think around something that's as complex as what they've tried to make society to be today, it's no wonder what's happening is happening. So you're absolutely correct. We have got to put everything together and think on these things and not get bogged down in that, well, Elon said that Twitter's going to be, and he cares about free speech. And I mean, he said some things recently about windmills, for example. He and RFK, I think it was, had some kind of a thing, and they were both talking bad about windmills and some of the green energy deal, but not carbon credits.
Yeah.
So, that's another thing. If they're talking bad about windmills and they're talking bad about solar, but then they're not bringing up about how bad the carbon credit economy is going to be and how that's going to force everybody into an EIG kind of a communist China model, then you have to wonder, so, okay, what big deal is it that you don't like wind then? I mean, that's just a small part of the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they just have to make their money off that short-term investment,
Yeah,
and then what happens? You have failing windmills that we don't know how to recycle them. We don't know what to do with them. Oh, we have a problem that needs to be fixed. Oh, it needs a new market to come fix it. Yeah. Oh, we've got a solution for that.
Yeah.
And so I think, people just arm yourselves with a few simple rules. Know the buzzwords.
Yes.
I would say do not trust any billionaires, any foundations. They're too big. Also, understand that a key part of this transition to a new economy of trading carbon credits, it depends on us outsourcing government to private corporations through public-private partnerships. And so there's a narrative being developed about the incompetence of government so that we will trust private innovators like Elon Musk, who can do things so much better than NASA. Oh, I wonder how that happened. You look at the Edelman Trust Barometer and it says, ooh, the government couldn't come up with a vaccine, but guess what? Private corporations could. Now Americans don't trust their government. Oh man, we need stakeholder governance to come right in and save us. So if you understand that dynamic, that's another tool in your arsenal. And then think locally, think educating the people directly around you, active citizens, your neighbors. Also, focus your energies at your workplace if you work, especially for a big company, because you need to be on guard for the policies that are coming from your HR department. All those benefits, health insurance, allowances for your nice running sneakers, credits for buying a clean car. Those are all carrots that are going to become leashes to rein you in. And, on the acting locally, you need to really get to your municipal office holders and county office holders, and then the state. There is, I think, no hope at the national level. We've got to build a real popular movement at the state level, county by county, and we have to cross the rural and urban divide. They want us divided. They're going to take the land from the people who live in the rural areas, and they're going to put in their crazy pipelines, and then they're going to force the people in the cities to use this new form of energy. And so there are two sort of prongs of this reset movement, and we just have to be aware of these basic patterns. And whenever you see them in play, say, no, thank you, I'm steering clear. We just, at the most basic level, we just need to pause and do not make any new action in these areas. Just tell your legislators, don't pass any new legislation. Say no.
Well, and we got to think on down the road too, because if they're taking all this farmland to put in this goofy crap that doesn't work, like solar installations and wind installations and that kind of thing, what happens to the line? And carbon? So
and they want to cut down the trees so that they can use this biomass as part of their new refining process, because it like lowers their emissions levels too. So, when they say, ooh, trees somehow hurt the environment, it's because they want to shred those up, mulch them up, and inject it into the refining process because it counts as biomass. That's more technical than I'm really capable of. But you can see it's just this massive ruse that has been developed at the highest levels, and the real power that we have to stop it is to just say no.
Well, and that means that we have to get involved. We have to get involved and stop thinking that Trump's going to fix it or somebody else is going to fix it. Sorry, peeps, it's you. It's on you.
Yeah, but
You're the one that has to do it.
It's also been expedited by this, though, too, Jenny, because this takes a lot of time and a lot of thought process away from a lot of people.
Oh, 100%. I have no argument there. And you know that. I hate those things.
Yeah.
And there was just another good, to back that up, there was just another good study, long-term study released by Sweden, some scientists in Sweden, that talk about the brain damage to children from the use of these things.
Oh yeah.
So it's takes away critical thinking skills. It destroys areas of the brain that actually put out neuronal signaling to other parts of the brain that help to bring about intellectual thought. And because dopamine covers all of that stuff up, and that's what those things are. So if you as a parent allow your child, and I would say any child under the age of 16, to have unencumbered access to a computer, a tablet, anything electronic, you will regret it. You'll regret it, and the rest of society will regret it. Those kids have no business on that stuff. No business. You can deal it out a little bit at a time. Hey, if you take the garbage out, I'll give you 10 minutes. But that's it. I mean, if you give them unrestricted access, you are helping to ruin this world. And I will just say that. So anything else before we get off of here today? It's 1:46. We better log it out.
Well, I do want to add one more cog into that about 3 or 4 minute dissertation that Julianne just gave us about 10 minutes ago. The one more cog in the wheel of that is with those public-private partnerships, or like your example of NASA moving into SpaceX. Well, now because it's SpaceX, I don't have the ability to have transparency into SpaceX, into the government money that they're subsidizing over there. I don't have the ability to see the transparency of what is actually happening. That's just another design in the system.
And that you're 100% on that. But if they were to stay private and not take any kind of government money at all, let them do what they want.
Yeah.
Let them do that's literally fair. It's not fair when they get government subsidies. And you're 100% right. It includes transparency. There isn't any with that. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Julianne, for being with us again, and looking forward to you being with us again next month, we hope. And so let me tell you who's on for next Wednesday and next Friday. We have Chad McDougall, who is the Petroleum Alliance chairman, the Oklahoma Petroleum Alliance chairman, and he's going to come on and talk to us a little bit about there were a number of interim studies this fall at the Capitol about green energy versus petroleum energy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then on the 22nd, we're going to have an attorney from Hughes County. His name's John Baca. And he stumbled upon, and Julianne, I'm going to ask you to actually watch this one live because I would like to hear your comments about it. He has been doing some research on the green scam in Oklahoma and found something, and I'll let him explain it to you because I don't even quite understand it the way he's explained it to me. But it's a tax credit kind of scam that's being perpetrated on Oklahomans at both the state and the federal level. And he found it out, and it's quite large. And he's going to explain that to us next Friday. So be with us next week for sure for Wednesday and Friday. And we'll talk about those couple of things that affect, again, where we are in Oklahoma. Because isn't that what we try to do, Michael?
100%.
We're all about Oklahoma. Oklahomans take note. All right, Julianne, God love you for being with us. So appreciate you. And thank you for everything that you brought us on carbon credits today. I hope everybody was like me and really kind of learned something. Anything on the way out?
Nope. I just want to thank you guys for doing what you do. It's always a pleasure. It's always fun.
It is fun, isn't it?
It is.
I like that.
I don't say that about everybody, but Michael and Jenny, you guys are like, there's no one I'd rather talk about this ugly stuff with than the two of you.
Well, we feel the same about you. So thank you.
All
It's
right.
a mutual admiration society. All right, guys. Well, you have a great day. Have a great weekend. It is going to be beautiful this weekend. Oh, my goodness. So get out there and enjoy it. And then Michael and I will see you again on Wednesday. So be sure to be here with us next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Thanks so much.